Florida's Space Coast, this is your career.
Welcome to Your Career. I'm Debbie Featherston, your host, and with me today is Kathy Emerson, President of Kathy Emerson, LLC. And Kathy, you are a CPA and have a fabulous history, or career history, if you will, and it's interesting, right? And that's why I've asked you to come, because we're going to be talking about careers in accounting, and you have one of these unique journeys that your career has taken that I think will help educate, inform, and maybe inspire a few people.
Okay.
So, would you start off by telling us a little bit about your journey that's led you to where you are today?
Sure. Thanks, Debbie. I want to start from the point where I have my associate's degree. So let's just start there. I grew up in Ohio, had my associate's degree, got a job with a bank in a collections department, in the credit department, and I knew that there was growth potential. But I wasn't really, my heart wasn't in it. So I was looking for something else, and at that point, I had a friend who had moved to California and decided that if I wanted to come out and spend some time with her and see what's available outside of Ohio, that I would take that trip. So I did just that, gave my notice, packed my car, drove cross country, and met with her, moved in, and I wanted to make a go of it. I found a job, and at that time, we're going into the holiday season, so I didn't think I would have too much of a trouble. What I did is I found part-time retail cashier. And I just worked really hard at it. I was always available, just get the work done. And at the end of the season, I was one of two people that they kept on. And from there, I just blossomed. I continued to do well, and every year I would get a promotion. The first year I was, the head of customer service, and then I was a department manager, and then the third manager of the store was a merchandising manager, then assistant manager, and then, of course, store manager, but of a different location. I had to interview for that. I did get the job. It involved relocating to Central California, so we did that. And my goal at that point, because I think it's so important to have goals, was to continue to get into a management position, because we all know that retailers come and go.
Right.
I would be able to then get a job in management anywhere, and it worked. So over the course of several years, 17 years, I had a variety of retail management positions. So once I got there, I stayed there. So that was really the beginning, but I never lost sight of wanting to complete my education. And I really wanted my bachelor's degree because I knew that that would open more doors. And I didn't want to do retail forever.
Understandable.
Understandable. I had been, helping with other store openings, training people, just being that person. If you'd give me something to do, it would get done. I'd assemble a team and we'd make it work. So I did all of that and just kept looking for opportunities to get my bachelor's. So what I did do is researched how could it happen? Well, the online schools were not as prevalent and really known as they are now.
Right.
So traveling to a building to go to a school was just not going to happen from where we were located. So Southern California, California State University, San Marcos the campus was being built. It was very close to my home. I went there, found admissions, got signed up, and started taking classes.
Wow.
So I transitioned out of retail, and while I'm a manager, I wrote my own schedule. So at the last semester, I transitioned out of retail, finished my degree, and got a job at a small promotional company, just part-time, whatever would work with my school schedule to finish that last semester. And when I did, I had my bachelor's degree. I went to the accounting manager and introduced myself, said I just graduated, can you use an accountant? And as it turns out, she could. So she hired me, and my job was to help anyone in the department that needed help, because certain times of the year, or the month, there was a heavy load of information to gather, and then something was going on at somebody's desk all the time. But it really gave me the opportunity to learn the accounting department because this was all new to me.
Right.
So a couple of things that served me well was I had already picked up some really good Excel skills. So once they found out that I can also reconcile accounts, no matter what they were, I could find the errors, I became much more valuable to them. And I found I was working more and more with the CFO and more with the treasurer. So really learning the cash management side and just becoming more valuable to them. So
and the skills and the knowledge that you were gaining from working so closely, with the people that will run the department.
Yes, and because I would have questions and they would answer them. So have the questions, ask the questions, and get the answers, and you're going to get the knowledge. But because without that ability to communicate with the people you're working with, you're just going to be in the dark.
Right.
So knowing that early, that you don't come with all the answers. So I was very fortunate, I think, but I also took advantage of the opportunities. Something else that happened while I was there is they changed their whole accounting system to an Oracle system. And they needed someone within the department to head up the transition of the accounts receivable and the credit collections group. So they asked me or assigned me to do it. So it really was my very first project to take on.
Huge project at that.
It was, didn't really know how big it was. Yeah, didn't really. But what it involves is a lot of things that I'm doing still to this day because of the enjoyment and the satisfaction. So I interviewed the users, found out what they needed, met with the programmers, the database professionals. We worked within the setups of how to make the database work for this group, and then tested the system. So it's all about testing that system to see how it flows from one point to another. And I trained the users and wrote the manuals, and everybody, there is some pushback because people don't really like change. But once they were on board and knew they had a say into how it was going to operate, it made it a very successful transition. So it was quite nice.
Yeah, and probably you being dedicated to handle that transition instead of being somebody's added responsibility really helped that to go smoother.
That is really key because several of the groups within that company did exactly that, and that put a lot of stress and strain on what can really be accomplished within the department. So it was a lot of extra work. So they all knew that they can come to one person, and I would just put it on my list of things to do and handle it. So from there, I wanted to pursue my CPA because I had the available credits that I needed to meet that requirement, but I needed the experience.
What was it about the CPA that attracted you at that point in your career?
I knew that I would be more marketable, and in looking for places to work, I saw, CPAs apply here. This is the job. We need a CPA to apply. You need to be a CPA to get this job. And I thought, it will open so many doors, and I am so close. So back then, the criteria changes. So you always have to be, what is the current criteria when you're going for this? So at that time, it was must work under a licensed CPA, but also get certain skills in preparing financial statements and auditing books, et cetera, and you keep track of how many hours you're really gathering, what clients you're working on, and how this is really adding up to meet these requirements. So I saw it as, I need to work at a CPA firm. Well, my treasurer that I became friends with and working more and more with at the company, he was moving back into public accounting. So I interviewed at the firm that he was going to, and I got the job. So I was on his team, but also working directly for one of the partners in the firm because he was the audit partner. So it was a wonderful experience and a lot of exposure to how companies really work. They taught me how to audit because I did not learn it in school. So I learned hands-on, this is what you look for, this is what you do, this is how you make a work paper.
And if I remember From our earlier discussion, you were saying that as a CPA, when you come out of school, you're required to work under, explain that.
You were required to work under a licensed CPA so that they can
Okay.
sign off on it. So when you get these, when you
Skill
earn the
sets.
skills and you perform these requirements, there is a licensed CPA to sign off on that
So you're
and
really
validate
being
it.
mentored and
Very much so.
right. So that's great. Oh, perfect.
Very much so,
Yeah.
yes.
So from the CPA, where? How did you get from there to where you are now?
I wanted to be an auditor for 5 years. So I was in Southern California at an audit firm for 2.5 years. And then we relocated to Florida to be closer to family. And I immediately got a job at a firm as a senior auditor, and I stayed there for 2.5 years. So between the two of them, that was my goal for 5 years.
Right.
And after that, it was very much a plan to, what am I going to do after this? Well, I always look to see if I'm in a place, what is the upper mobility in that place? Well, it was a smaller firm, and there really wasn't a lot.
Yeah.
So I thought, that's okay, because I want to get now into a larger company, private industry, something else. So from there, I'm going to go right into Northrop Grumman, because I went to Northrop Grumman as the audit liaison. First, I had to learn how to spell liaison, so, but as an audit liaison. But I was the point person for the campus folks and the DCA auditors, and what an interesting experience, because I always knew that there was continuous audits going on, but until you're in the thick of it, you really don't understand. And I now do understand that there's system audits, particular financial audits, everything going on, rates audits, and the request for what they needed would come to me, and I would then find the right person within our campus that could get that information. And then the information that they would supply would come to me. I'd look at it to make sure it satisfied the request, and then I'd send it over to the DCA auditors. And so that was a lot of that going on simultaneously. It was with a great team. Some people I still see today because it's a small town. And unfortunately, I was only there for 10 months because I got caught up in a reduction in workforce. So when that happens, it's, okay, I'm finishing a manual of everything that we need to generate for my superiors. They needed to see certain things, monthly, weekly, etc. So I made sure that whoever took this role would have some point of reference, because documentation is key to whatever we do.
Indeed.
So I finished that. I was reduced, and so I just put the word out that I was looking for work and what was available, and I had a lot of good information, and also looking for myself. I ended up seeing an engineering fair that was in Cocoa Beach. And I thought, every one of these companies has an accounting program, has an accounting department. They all need accountants. I'm going to go meet the owners of these companies and introduce myself. So that's what I did. As soon as I could figure out how to get in, which I did, took my resume. There were no other accountants in the room. It was all engineers. And I just very quickly would not take too much of their time, but introduced myself and found out if they had a need. And that's where I met Carol and John Craig from Craig Technologies, and I became their very first controller.
Oh, that's a wonderful story.
Yeah, so I was there, and there again, coming off of a small accounting system, and we know what her business is today. It's gigantic. Phenomenal. Well, it was still phenomenal then, and we were able to get some structure and order and pull things together and get some better reporting. And I was there for about 14 months, was not planning on leaving, was not looking, and I was recruited by someone that I knew from a recruiting agency, and he said, I know that you're not looking for work, but this is such a good fit for you that I absolutely had to call you. And my first reaction was, but I'm not looking, and I'm very happy where I'm at. And in talking with him, he was explaining what the job is. And I said, finally he said, will you just do me a favor? I have to give qualified candidates, and you absolutely are qualified. Will you please, as a favor to me, go on this interview? So I did. I went on the first interview, went on a second interview, and the offer was significantly higher than what I was currently making, and I transitioned into that job.
Wow.
But that's how things happen.
Wow.
It's knowing people and taking advantage of opportunities.
And really going back, through the 10 minutes or so that you've been talking about, your career, and it's been a long and involved one. It's interesting that you've had, as you said, you're really committed to goals, and I heard that because you had the associate's degree, but you were intent on achieving certain academic goals, right? The bachelor's degree was critical. That was a personal goal, right?
Right.
Then the CPA, you began to realize, looking at ads, or you're thinking, and it seems to me one of the things that was unique here, Kathy, that you don't see with the average individual is that, you're constantly looking forward. You're very future focused. What about the next job? How can I prepare? I need my professional development. I need academic, right? What can I do? What can I do? And gaining that experience and how it just continually opens doors. So there's a lot of planning on your part. There's being very strategic, right, and intentional in going after certain types of experience, and the development of a broader scope of skills.
Right into that, when I was at Northrop Grumman, they had an opportunity for an MBA. So I asked my manager if he would recommend me for the program. He said, I normally don't when somebody was here just a short while, but in your case I will. And he recommended me for the program. And I got in, and I was already taking classes at Webster University through Northrop Grumman, and I was very grateful to have started. So when I was caught up in the reduction of workforce, I was already in it, and I continued in it.
Oh, that's
so I
fantastic.
just made sure that I scraped together what I could and continued to pay for that and finish. So with that, I got my master's degree also. It took several years to get through it, but I figured once I'm started,
might as well finish.
Might as well finish.
That's great. And what benefit it's probably had for you in your career. And so what do you feel really separated you from others that really, I think, was responsible for you being promoted so rapidly?
Well, think about where I was coming from, that I was coming from really a rental apartment with nothing other. I had to make it on my own. So I had a real seriousness to making this all work.
Oh, you tell me that was good motivation?
So it was very, very good motivation. I knew that I needed to do a great job, but it also was my ethics that I am a hard worker.
Ethics.
Right.
Work ethic.
So I knew that to be successful, it was really all on me and a lot of people that were helping me along the way and showing me opportunities. I was, come to work on time, do the work that was given me, and leave it in good order. So just
sounds like you left it
hardworking.
in better shape than when you found it.
That's really what I like to do.
Yeah, because I hear that in you, that you're just not going to come in and do
The minimum.
The minimum. You're going to go in and put your heart and soul in it, make certain it's quality, it's done well, it's done more efficiently. Just
all of that. And with that was I was developing management skills. Really didn't realize it at the time, but in order to get a team working, you have to be a little creative on how you talk to people, how you address people, how you look at them and listen to them. And I was developing my own way, and it was good.
I would say, to summarize some of the traits and the qualities that you demonstrated, is that you had a real can-do mindset, right? Never said no to anything. I want to move us along a little bit.
Okay.
I'm just curious, what are some of the career options that really exist for a person with a CPA?
First of all, look at yourself and find out what interests you. And then, as you're learning accounting or going through accounting, you might find cost accounting very interesting. So that's where you get into what's the cost of certain business activities. You might find that interesting. You might find auditing, even tax preparer. Okay. But as you branch out more, what kind of a tax preparer? Do you want to be individual? Do you want to be corporate? Do you want to be international? this could all be your niche. So I strongly recommend that you get a niche. Find out what you find interesting, because to me, accounting is a puzzle and stories that you're trying to put it all together. And we know that reporting is going to drive how things are set up. So you just follow the blocks, if you will. But other jobs might be internal auditors. So we have external auditors, we have internal auditors that actually work with a company and are looking and gauging how processes are working. Controllers, CFOs, treasurers would benefit greatly, because the CPA mindset is one that you can usually figure something out and you can follow flows a little quicker because this is where your mind works well. As you continue with that, there's find out what interests you, but then find out a field. So you can be, forensic accounting, healthcare, entertainment accounting. Just everybody needs an accountant.
Yeah.
So it's not so dry.
It's really discovering the specialization and making certain that specialization really is aligned with their passion and their interest.
Yes, and find a skill that you can bring to the table and that people will pay for. So I learned that early on, especially with my first job, when I said I was very good at Excel. I was very good at reconciling things, and people would give me things they would spend hours on and say, please just take it off my desk and figure this out. And it's such a joy when you bring something to them back completed that they can now move on.
Yeah.
So that's a skill that I had. Then I developed learning how to do a statement of cash flows, where that's not usually a very attractive to some people. And now, of course, we have programs that will do that. Your accounting programs will generate it, but you have to look at it,
You still have
because
to know how to analyze those numbers and what do they really mean, right?
Right, and some things will fall into certain categories, but they might not be right within the statement. So you're basically validating what's coming out of your software.
Okay.
So, and analyzing it.
Yeah. How does one really determine that specialization? I mean, what are some ways that they might go about discovering that specialization or the field that they want to pursue? Is it something that really is tied just to an interest? Should they maybe work a little bit while they're going to school to get some exposure to different types of specialties? What do you suggest?
What I suggest, and I still do it today, even though I'm perfectly happy where I'm working, is I have a career builder job search going, and you can actually have more than a few of these, and to say, here's the criteria. Just some basic criteria. Don't get too narrow, because you want to have a lot of results. And with this, you're going to see what kind of jobs are available.
Okay.
And as you're getting these, whether it's daily or weekly, you're going to start to get a feel for what interests you. It's like, well, that looks like a fun company to work for, or a fun team to be on. And you start to kind of shape, like, this could.
You'll see what you're attracted to,
See
right?
what you're attracted to.
You'll begin to see the pattern. This is more appealing. I'm always going back over here to that.
Yes.
Is that kind of what you're thinking?
That's exactly what I'm thinking. And even if you're learning accounting, when you're learning accounting, we learn it in a very structured format. So you're going, down the balance sheet and learning what all the accounts do. You're going down the income statement, and you're just learning how it all works together. If there's certain areas of that you find more interesting than others, then we're just trying to focus on that and see what job we can get from that.
So, but you also are teaching.
I am teaching.
And so the one question I have that relates to that, we have about 3 minutes left. But I raise that because I think your response, you're credible. You can answer this. What's your recommendation to students when it comes to working while going to school? Working specifically in accounting while they're going to school. What do you think?
Understand that the first job you get is not your destination.
Yeah.
Okay, that is where you're going to start your learning. And that first job really is an opening.
Yes.
And that job will be an opening for the next person behind you. So your goal is to get that job and then advance and get out of that job and let it be open for someone else. So knowing that there's opportunities all around you and everybody needs an accountant, and accountants are highly marketable, that get the experience, take on those extra opportunities and move up in your career. And just keep looking around and just be helpful to others. You're going to train, you're going to be trained, you're going to mentor. There's things that aren't going to go your way, but you will have tried it, which puts you in a better position than the person that's never tried it.
Yeah.
So you're getting that experience, you're becoming that person that's going to be the one that people go to because you know the answer.
Yeah, yeah.
So if that means also going back to school, finishing your education, do it. You mentioned I was a teacher. I'm at Kaiser University. Having my MBA positioned me to be able to teach. So phenomenal the way that it all just kind of fell into place.
Yeah.
Love doing it, and the format works for people that are working and trying to finish something. So
That's fabulous. Well, in about 10 seconds or so, what would be your final words of wisdom to someone? Any particular words of wisdom that would help a person really achieve a level of happiness in their career?
be open to opportunities, just have a can-do attitude, and understand that you're working with a lot of other people with different personalities. So just kind of work to bring a team together, and have their voices also be heard.
That's wonderful. That'll have to be the last word, Kathy. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you.
And on behalf of my guests and everyone here on the set of Your Career, thank you for watching, and remember, be career happy.
More information about this program is available online at millermediagroup.org.